I'm going to direct them at some people, and then for others, I think they're relevant to everybody. For this one, we'll continue letting everyone go, but we'll go ahead and work our way back this way. So we often know what we don't want in a job opposed to what we do. What's your advice to someone trying to figure out what they want to do in their next job? And let's go ahead and start with Chris.
That's a really fantastic question, I think, because a lot of the clients I've had in the past have been career changers, career transitioners, and a lot of the times I notice that they have parts of their job that they really hate and parts of their job that they really like. And I don't know if I'll get agreement here, but I'm a believer of believer that finding a job that you absolutely love is not necessarily the best advice. You need to find a job that you absolutely love and that there is a demand for and that there are skills for. So a lot of the times I'll ask specific clients of mine, what do you have that would be needed in the market? And I'll speak about one specific client. Her name was Janine. And one thing that she really truly loved doing in her current job was customer service and dealing with people. However, she was working in academia, and that is actually a very tough position to be in. She was at a university that was giving her a very hard time. So what we ended up having her do was look at different types of positions in different industries that still had that same skill set that she liked. So customer service, account management, and that helped guide her in her situation. So that's just my resume writer's take, and I'd be really interested to hear what the other people think as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think what's really critical when you're trying to think about what you're really going to love or look for in your next job is not to focus exclusively on what your strengths are, but kind of where your gaps are and where you don't want them to be. It really speaks to your story, right? What you're now doing. If anyone has heard of a book called Growth Mindset, I really recommend it. I think it's a great counterpoint to the book Skills Finder. It really tells you to kind of lean in, right? That's why I'm sitting here public speaking. I recognize that where I wanted to go in my career, I had to be much more comfortable presenting in front of people. And so I said, okay, let me just lean into it really hard and put myself out there. So I think thinking through what you want in your next job is also identifying where you have gaps and being really honest with yourself and just going after that as well.
I think when you start to look for the next step in your career journey, as she said, it's easy to know the things you don't like, and you end up carrying that baggage with you sometimes, and it can make it a little difficult to see the positives of what you could have and what you want in the next position. And whether you work with a coach or whether you have a friend or a family member or somebody, I think it's always good to take a partner to start to decompress a little bit and start to just think about, what do you want that next position to be? What is it that you're really looking for? And having somebody that can be objective with you. Because I think we tend to get our own blind spots when we get so focused on what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to get away from, that we may not see the good opportunity that's in front of us. So having that partner is going to be that person to say, hey, come here, let's talk about this. And be more objective for you, I think is one part. And a lot of my work also is around behavioral science. And I'm a big fan of some of the assessment tools that we can use in the industry to help you understand yourself on a little bit deeper level. And I think when you have a better understanding of who you are and why you do what you do, you can have a better selection option for the career that you pursue. So.
Nice. All right, the formula I teach for career fulfillment is what plus where. What being what you enjoy doing, what comes naturally to you, what do your friends come to you for, what you get rewarded for and praised for. So that's the what, the big question, like what do you want to do? But actually, the where, in my opinion, is more important. The culture you're a part of, the mission of the place, the team that you're surrounding yourself with, the energy of the place that you're working in, you're breathing in that space day in and day out. The what is so important, and that gets overlooked a lot. You did not get a chance to choose your biological family, but you do get a chance to choose your work family. So choose wisely. Choose people who are part of your tribe. You resonate with them. You get along with them. You might be doing very different work, but at the end of the day, you know you get along, you respect each other, you collaborate well, and you're doing work that's meaningful for the world. One resource I would recommend is the Austin American-Statesman every year publishes the top 100 companies in Austin. And they are ranked based on giving back to the community, work-life balance, good ethical leadership, flexible work hours. So you might want to check out that list.
So I'm going to use this question as a little plug from my breakout group over here, because that's exactly all we're going to be working on is really helping to clarify your vision of what it is that you're looking for. But interestingly enough, I often start out with that question of starting a list of all the things you don't want in your next job, and then looking to mirror that, find a positive opposite way of expressing from the what you don't want into looking for how do you define clearly and specifically what you do want. So for example, how many people here love being micromanaged? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Okay. So one of the things I'll coach is then let's focus on among the things that you want to specify in your own words, the opposite of micromanaging, which might be managers who trust and let me have autonomy. So.
Awesome. Built in Austin is another really great resource as well, with lists of top companies hiring and kind of startup culture and all of that stuff. And I love what everybody said, but I think the what and the where makes so much sense to me. And specifically, I was meeting with a friend the other day, and she said, I'm just looking at Indeed for jobs, and I'm just looking through the list. And I was like, no, what do you want to do? And she's like, well, I want to work with animals, and I want to work in tech. Have you looked at Dog Vacay? Have you found people there? So I think identifying what you actually want to do actually opens things up way more than I know a lot of people who just scour job sites all day. Sorry for coming in and answering that question a little bit there too, but awesome. So I'm going to direct this one to both Chris and Kelly at the end. So you guys look at LinkedIn and resumes all day, and I'm curious to know, what are some of the common pitfalls that you guys see?
Good one. Common pitfalls. I'll go first, and I'll talk specifically about resumes. I had so many different format content, I saw all the numbers come through. But I'll speak to content because I think that's one that's really tricky for a lot of people to understand. And I think not having results, not having numbers, and just talking about your daily job descriptions. I look at a lot of resumes every single day, and the ones that do not stand out, I'll tell you, are just the ones that have just a list of what they did on a daily basis. So I'm always encouraging people to try to look back in, the past 8 months, whatever it is. I know it's a lot of work, but definitely focus on the most recent job position, because, I would love to hear your opinion, but I think that's where a lot of people spend a lot of the time looking. And then the rebuttal I'll usually get from clients is, but I don't have anything, I don't know what to include. Guys, there is something. There is definitely something that you did to stand out, something that you did that made you special and that made you an asset to your company. So definitely do your research, definitely do your homework, and don't get lazy when it comes to numbers and results and being action-oriented. If you still have trouble doing it, come talk to me afterwards, and we can talk about how you can get that.
Yeah, I would say another big one is, and it feeds off of what you've said, is an inability to articulate clearly leadership opportunity. I think a lot of people have a very narrow definition of what leadership is. And so rather than include things like projects or initiatives you may have led, no matter how small they appear, you just leave things off entirely. So you discount your own experience sometimes. So I think, to your point, talking to someone and just saying, this is what I did in the last 4 months, this is what I did in the last 6 months, and talking through it, you start to realize there's quite a bit to what you do that doesn't fall in the kind of day-to-day variety and can really be bucketed differently than you think, right? Problem solving is a big one. A lot of people get stressed by this concept of, oh, I'm not really a big problem solver. But if you really ask questions around what they've done in larger time frames, things start to emerge.
Yeah. Awesome. And now for the coaching side of things, is there anything specifically that you've seen candidates or people you've worked with that are common pitfalls?
I think for me, the most common one is the unfocused resume, the one that just kind of dumps, here's everything I've done, you figure out what I want to do onto the company. And so if you need to be able to state up front, here's who I am, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm offering to you, this is what my real skills are, then it really makes it a lot easier for a recruiter to figure out where in the company they can best use you.
And I think I would say one of the other things I see with the LinkedIn, and I know it sounds like LinkedIn 101, the photos. The photos, depending on your industry, it might be okay to have something kind of entertaining, I guess, in the photos. But it is a professional website. It is for, you know, putting out your first impression of who you are. So, you know, make sure it is a good photo. You know, they were doing the headshots for us over here today. You know, don't grab a photo of a wedding that you're at with some friend and then crop yourself out of it and into it and take the head part and zoom it in and then Instagram filter it and all the rest of the stuff that we see out there. Just make it a nice, good, clean photo. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything expensive, just a good, clean, professional photo. Because that's first impression. And I'll tell you, a lot of people I've talked to, employers, when the recruiters are looking, when they don't even see a LinkedIn photo, they immediately just move along because they think that you're not serious about your career.
I would also just add one thing if we're kind of talking about LinkedIn and resumes. Make sure they're the same if you can. It's pretty simple. You can actually upload resumes to LinkedIn now and then just go back and edit. But I would say as a recruiter, it does become a little bit of a red flag when you're looking at a resume, you also look at a LinkedIn, the dates don't match up, positions don't match up, it's not clear. Doesn't mean that someone might be misrepresenting themselves, but it means that they're not paying the same attention to both profiles, and both are important, both are used so widely now.
Yep.
I want to add, don't seem desperate. People can smell desperation and it stinks a mile away. So the Buddha said, attachment is suffering. So you want to be high intention of what you want. You want enjoyment, you want fulfillment, you want something to make you happy. But don't be so attached. It has to be this job, it has to be this salary, it has to be this job title. That is suffering. So,
Love that. I'm just going to let anybody jump into this one. How do you handle the I need experience to get the job, but I need the job to get experience situation?
I love that one. I get that one a lot. In that question, when you see that out there, where does anywhere say that the experience has to be paid experience? Nowhere says it has to be a paid experience. So there's a lot of opportunities out there to volunteer with different organizations, whether it's any kind of local organization. It could be a church, it could be a nonprofit, it could be anything where you're able to apply your skills and work with those organizations, and that counts as experience. So that's probably the number one piece of advice that I give clients all the time is, you know, where can you help, where can you be a servant, where can you contribute? And then you're going to get that return back by being able to include that in your experience. So.
I love that. I think also, especially for like digital marketing, web development, there's so many pet projects you guys can do to prove that stuff. So to that point, that's awesome. Does anyone else want to take that question?
Yeah, I would also just say, kind of to my earlier point, don't discount the work that you've done, assuming it's not something other companies will consider relevant. I think we all have a lot of transferable or adaptable, what some people call softer skills. And to your point, there are things that you do in your personal life and professional life that can be very relevant to jobs at times. It's just a matter of being able to articulate that.
One of the things that I found is really critical is that the less experience you have to actually fit a job description, I think the more important it is to focus on smaller organizations. Because big organizations look for somebody to fit the specifics of a job description. Smaller organizations look for somebody who's going to fit our mission, somebody who believes in doing what we want to do. And small organizations look for people who are flexible and adaptable because they know in those organizations you have to wear a lot of different hats. So if you can show that you've got the passion and the focus on the shared mission and can build relationships with the people in the smaller companies, you're much more likely to find a good opportunity.
Just want to add something real quick. Sorry, bouncing around. Katie said something really interesting, which was the P word. I think you said projects. And I do believe there's a lot of power in showcasing projects and tying together also what Al said about it not necessarily being paid. I think that's okay. And I'll give an example. A lot of the times I work with, we're at Capital Factory here, so software developers who are coming out of coding boot camps, and they've never been a software developer before. And this is a really painful thing because a lot of the times these companies are looking for experience, and it is really tough to hire somebody who hasn't been in the role yet. But speaking with a lot of hiring managers and a lot of recruiters, they really are fans of seeing specific projects you've worked on and what you've been able to accomplish with those projects. You developed an app to help reduce the time it takes to commute from work through a scheduling thing. Fantastic. Talk about that in a specific bullet point. You know, talk about that thing in your cover letter. Talk about that passionately in your LinkedIn profile even. And I think when you do get excited and you do get really passionate about these things you've done, whether they're paid for or not, you know, whether you've done this at a coding boot camp or not, I think that really resonates with recruiters, and I think that's a really exciting thing.
One of my clients got a call, he got the job, and the hiring manager said, you know what, we interviewed 3 people. You were the least experienced, but we just liked you most, so you get the job. I really feel like skills, schmills, experience, skills, degrees, I mean, they say that on paper, but y'all, the job search process is not logical, because if you applied logic to it, then the best person, right, everyone would submit a resume, all the resumes would get looked at line by line, they choose the top 5 resumes, bring them in for interviews, and they, you know, choose their best candidate with the best qualifications, experience, degrees, and skills. That's not logical. I mean, people are not logical, people are irrational. And irrational people are people who are hiring. So you want to think about, how does the decision actually get made? They like you, and you're in. That's really what it's about.
Yeah, and I can't emphasize that enough. I think find your allies and your advocates, right? Because ATS systems might spit you out as not qualified, but people won't. And so go find somebody at the company versus just applying and them saying, oh, this person's not qualified, next. Awesome. Okay. This one is another one. I think we can start with Kelly because I think Google has a really interesting way of evaluating candidates. But there's so many people that probably are applying every day to Google, right? So who stands out?
It sounds so simple, and that's because it really is, but very clean resumes. If you're applying for a graphic design position, if you're applying for a position that requires some sort of aesthetic or design component, absolutely get creative on your resume. Otherwise, make it as clean and straightforward to read as possible. In the top third of your resume, you'll probably see it if you Google how to craft a strong resume. In the top third of your resume, that's where you want to have the bulk of your keywords, right? Meaning if you're looking at a job description and you're trying to match the keywords in that job description to what is written on your resume, and by the way, you should do that, and we'll talk about it in our breakout session, try to load them in the top third. Recruiters on average spend maybe 45 seconds looking at every resume if we're talking about bulk applicant tracking, right? For example, we do have a team at Google that is responsible for viewing every resume that is sent through our portal. How many do you think they get? They have to do at least 600 a week. About 600 a week. So it's a lot. It's a lot of resumes. Yeah, load the top third of the resume, I would say, and keep it really clean. Read from bottom to top is a suggestion Laszlo Bock, who used to be people operations at Google, made, because often your brain will fill in the blanks. It'll know what you were trying to say. It'll know that you meant to have a period there, so you'll just assume you did it. Well, if you read it from bottom to top, it kind of disorients you a little bit, so that's a good tip. Formatting and cleanliness, big thing.
Awesome. For those of you working on the candidate side of things, who are like your most successful, your quickest people to get jobs, and why do you think they stood out? Why was it easy for them?
I think finding what makes you feel calm and centered is a better word. Centered and confident in the interview process, that will make you stand out. That can mean a lot of different things for a lot of people. I know some candidates that said to me, I want to sit in the room that I'm going to interview in alone for 5 minutes before anyone comes in. I want it to be quiet. That's how they centered themselves. I know that I get nervous public speaking, so on my walk over here, I watched the Nike ad that Odell Beckham Jr. just did to psych myself up and like get super confident and good headspace, right? So it can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but people that are calm and centered in the interview process tend to stand out. I also think people that remember no matter how casual the environment or informal the interview seems to be, it is still a job interview, and you should treat everyone respectfully. I cannot tell you the number of times, for example, that someone might not have been super nice to the admin that printed out their badge when they came into Google. Or, for example, I had a candidate recently who interviewed, who knocked the interview out of the park. The interviewer closed the laptop. They were at the informal part of the session. They were just doing a little bit of a Q&A. The candidate said something kind of in a joking way that came off as extremely off color, and that was kind of the end. So remember, you gotta finish. You can't just open, you gotta close.
Same thing, same question for you guys that are working with people.
So here's one of my favorite stories. John was going through a divorce. He said, you know what? I'm making this big life change. I've always regretted not going back to school to finish my degree. So his kids were off to college. I'm going to go back to school. It's my time. And that's when I met him. He was finishing up his degree, happy about that, excited, fulfilled. And he said, oh, you know what, Lynn? I just joined a gym because I want to stay fit and healthy. And in this CrossFit class, thank you. In this CrossFit class, I was throwing this medicine ball with someone, and I got offered a job. Just like that. I was just shooting the shit with him. Can I say shit?
Sure.
Okay.
We're adults here.
I was just shooting the shit with him, and I don't know what happened. I said, I'm very flattered. Thank you very much, but I actually quit my job. Oh, I'm sorry. He quit his job to finish, his degree. So I just quit my job. It's very important to me. I'm finishing my degree, but thank you very much. So the guy's like, I want you even more, and he upped the offer some more. And so my takeaway from that was when you are authentic and finding fulfillment for yourself, and only you can define that for yourself, when you are proactive in doing that for yourself, then that's what you radiate out. People see like, wow, he's happy, she's joyful, I want more of that, I want to get to know her. That's how you attract opportunities and attract people who are going to say yes to you.
Awesome. Any other big success?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really does make somebody stand out is if you've got a very clear sense of the why do I want this job? What is it I love about doing this? And 9 times out of 10 interviews begin with the question of, so Lynn, tell me about yourself. And if you really start by connecting to your heart in that answer, the what is it I really love about doing this kind of work, that sense of passion and enthusiasm carries through and ups your charisma 10 times.
Awesome. Cool. All right, so all of you guys, you're jumping in?
Yeah, I was going to jump in real quick. And I'll agree with both of them. The passion you have for the work and the company that you're going to work for coming out in the interview. I've had 2 clients in the last couple months that part of their preparation for the interview, obviously doing the homework on the company, but also knowing themselves about what they want from, like you mentioned earlier, the culture of the company. Is it the right fit? Does the values and mission of the company align with who I am and what I believe in? And when they went into their interviews, at the end of it, where you usually get that question, do you have any questions for us? Both of these clients had a list of questions. And that actually impressed the recruiters that they were taking it that serious and really wanted to make sure it was a good fit. And they were both offered positions. And they were shared with them later. That was one of the key factors that set them apart, was they actually had questions that were relevant and showed that they cared. It wasn't about just getting the job.
Yeah, I'm just gonna +1 that. That was actually something I wish I'd said. Have questions, and also one of the most common questions you get at Google after you've been asked the initial question is, okay, you've just articulated to me something you've done. Reflecting, is there anything you would do differently? Always be prepared to answer that question, because it shows that you're forward thinking and you're thoughtful, but you're also able to critique your own work. I think candidates that are able to come up with something, and it can be really tough, especially if you think you did something flawlessly, there's always something you might be able to iterate or articulate differently in the future.
Yeah. Chris, did you want to add anything? Didn't want to leave you out.
Made my point earlier.
Okay, got it. Awesome. Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I think practicing your career narrative and practicing it specific to the job you're going for is so huge. Tell a story and then know the company. Like, doing your research is just, I can't emphasize that enough. Awesome. So networking is obviously a big thing, hence why the room is full, which is great. And social media, networking, LinkedIn, BumbleBiz, all of these different things has really changed the game, and there's just a lot of them. So what's your guys' top tip for becoming a networking ninja?
First thing is delete the word networking from your brain. Get rid of it, get it out of your vocabulary. I don't like the word networking, but it's the common phrase we all use. Think of it as making genuine human connections. Building a group of people around you. It's your inner circle, it's your familiar circle, it's the people that you are working with to help them as much as they're helping you. It's you're sharing your knowledge and resources together. Networking has been used a lot of different ways with that terminology, and a lot of people immediately will cringe when you say, "Hey, are you going to a networking event?" I got to go talk to strangers and ask questions. So just think of it about building those genuine human connections. That's probably the biggest piece of advice I can think of. It just look at it as meeting new people.
I'm going to follow up on that, and I also hate networking meetings. What I really recommend that you do is hang out with your tribe. And by tribe, I mean find the other people that you share something in common with outside of the fact that we're all looking for a new job. How many people in the room are Aggies? We have Aggies in the room? All right. Only a couple of Aggies in the room? Wow, that's odd. But you're awesome. Now, but if you run into a fellow Aggie, do you feel somewhat compelled to create a bond with that person, to create some rapport with that person to help them out?
We got some horns over here.
Okay, let's get a few horns. Because actually, one of the things I did many years ago was I created a alumni career service program for the Texas Exes. And we had a program for exes helping other exes because there was a bond there. If you love board games, go to meetups with other board gamers and build relationships with them, because people want to help other people that they share some kind of a common bond with. Do some volunteer work. Other people that in whatever charity or nonprofit that you volunteer with are going to be more inclined to help you out. But strangers at a networking meeting, it just feels desperate.
How many of y'all have business cards with you right now? Hey, should be everyone. Okay. How many of you with business cards have someone's company information on it? Like your company business card. I recommend creating your own business card, your name, your contact information, fun colors and motif and themes that speak to who you are. So when you go to these kinds of networking events, I network at Costco, y'all. It's everywhere, anytime, whatever makes you happy. I'm talking to someone about apples at Costco, and then, hey, she's like, oh, you do career counseling. My son needs that help. Ding, here is a card. So wherever you go, have a card with you, especially if you're thinking about changing jobs, changing industries. If you only have a company card, and that's what's going to be seared into people's brain, like, oh, well, she works for this kind of industry. You want to have it personalized to you, but also open-ended enough that they could see you fitting into their world too.
Awesome. Anyone else? Good? The mics have been on this side, so I need to make sure.
I just want to make a point to the networking word. It's just really awful, and for many reasons. It's especially awful if you are introverted. And I have a lot of friends. All right, I would say raise your hand if you're introverted, but you may be shy to do that. But and it's not even about being shy. You know, technically, being introverted means it's where you draw your energy from. And I think a lot of people do consider themselves to be introverted who are not technically introverted, and vice versa. And one thing I want to say to that is, don't, just because you are an introvert or you found out through some test that you are, don't put yourself in this introvert box. You know, same goes if you're an extrovert. Don't put yourself in the extrovert box, because I find a lot of people get limited through that. You know, they'll say, I'm not going to go to that event. I'm an introvert. That's not something I would do as an introvert. But I'm telling you guys, some of the most social people I know, some really close friends of mine actually, are very introverted, who are some of the best networkers I know. I know this person who runs her own wine company, and she considers herself to be introverted, but she's talking in front of hundreds of people, the most charismatic person I've ever met, and she was just awesome. And when she told me she was introverted, I was absolutely taken aback. But it just goes to show, don't put yourself in that box, and definitely do make the effort to attend in-person events, exactly like what you're doing right now. And use that technology, because BumbleBiz, LinkedIn, it's absolutely great to use those things, but use that technology coupled with in-person events. So you meet somebody at this event, follow up with them the next day on LinkedIn, and do the opposite. You know, meet somebody on LinkedIn and then hey, maybe have a meeting with them to grab coffee and, you know, pick their brain a little bit.
Awesome. All right, we're about to open it up to Q&A, but I just want to give everybody a chance to, obviously, this room, when we asked, are you looking for jobs? Most people raised their hands. So is there any just one last bit of advice you would want to leave the room with before we open it to Q&A?
All right. One of the mantras I've worked with an awful lot of people who've been displaced out of the large employers, the Motorolas, the Apples, the Dells, the IBMs, and so on and so forth. And they immediately want to go back and apply to another Fortune 500 size company. And one of the slogans I've tried to drill into them is, ignore the Fortune 500, go for the Inc. 5000. Most new jobs are created by companies that have a couple hundred people or less. And so if you are focusing on the large employers, you are in a huge crowd of other people who are not thinking very creatively about where they want to go work. But if you can really target a handful of small companies that you really share a sense of mission with, you're much more likely to work it out. So ignore the Fortune 500, go for the Inc. 5000.
What do I want to say? I want to say this. What you put out is what you get back, right? What do you think about? What do you focus on? I hate this job. I hate this coworker. This guy's a jerk. What you think about, you bring more of. So can you shift your perspective, your thoughts, your attitudes, your feelings about your current situation so that you are going to attract and bring about something more positive, more fulfilling, and more meaningful to you? So you are in total control of your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and only your thoughts, feelings, and actions, right? So when we talk about like dating, you don't wait for somebody to make you happy. You choose to be happy yourself, and then you might find your match. Same thing with careers. You choose to find the fulfillment yourself, and then it will come to you. I'm gonna plug my book, The 10-Day Career Cleanse, is all about that. Oh, if you sign up for my newsletter, I'll give you an ebook of the book.
I'd say two things. One, if some of you may be familiar with emotional intelligence, if you're not familiar with it, it's a term to get used to, learn more about, and develop. It's really about learning self-awareness, self-regulation of your emotions and how they affect our behaviors. And I can't tell you how many clients I've had call in a panic because they let their emotions get the best of them and they made a decision about their current job without a plan for the next job. So, you know, definitely think about those decisions you're going to make. Take a deep breath, do some yoga, step away, relax a little bit, still your yoga there a little bit. Yeah, and, you know, just make some decisions and think about that, and then have a plan, have a strategy, and not react emotionally. So I think I've seen that way too much over the last year.
I'm just going to build off of some earlier points. I realized that one of my answers didn't seem to circle back to the question that you asked. But when I was talking about this concept of growth mindset and identifying gaps, I was really thinking about things that you think you hate in your work. Why do you hate them? Do you hate them because you're not good at them? I know I generally don't want to do things that I don't think I'm not good at, right? But sometimes, if you're honest with yourself, you can become better at something. You can, in fact, become much better at something, and it can open up a lot of new doors for you. So that is one thing I would kind of circle back, but it is, again, a plug for just don't let what scares you keep you from trying to do it, or don't let it put you in this box of, I don't want to do that in my next job. And then second is really just don't get discouraged. I work for a company that is large. I work for a company that hires a lot of people. I have, for example, worked with a woman who interviewed 13 times before she finally got hired. Don't be discouraged, and know that recruiters often are trying to do what's best not only for their business, but also for you. Sometimes when we say no, it's not because we want to disappoint you. It's because we genuinely feel this is not the best move for you next, based on a lot of things that you tell us throughout the process, right? And we're going to do our best to try to get you there eventually. So just don't get discouraged and keep an open mind about what you want to do.
It's good. I will add to that, and I'll continue to say never give up. And that's the most cliche thing I've ever heard, but it's true, like absolutely true. And I'll ask everyone in this room right now, how many of you have applied to 10 jobs and not gotten the results that you wanted? Keep your hand up if you've applied to 50 jobs and not gotten the results you wanted. 100. 500. Boom, gotcha. I had a client who applied to, kid you not, 1,000 jobs over the course of 1 year and still didn't get the results he wanted. That's a lot of time. And it was one of the most stressful points of his life, but he just kept trying over and over and over again. He was already working another job. It was a very low-level position that he wasn't happy with. And we ended up kind of like reworking his strategy. So there was some, like, it's not all about working hard. You got to work smart too, right? So looking at his resume, looking at the way he's reaching out to people, eventually he got a call back from a really good company that he wanted to work for as a network security analyst. So pretty high-paying job. And that callback turned into another interview, and that interview turned into final round. Then he got the job working for a Fortune 500 company. I agree with what you're saying, but yeah. And so he was able to increase his pay by 4 times what it was previously in a position that he never had before, but showing he was qualified and didn't give up. And I'm telling you, this guy had a crap ton of persistence, and I learned a lot from him. I'm like, maybe I should have as much persistence as this guy. So I tell that story just because, like, it sounds so cliche, but just keep trying. If he can do it, every single one of you can do it if you are in that pain of not hearing back from recruiters. So that's the point.
Awesome. So Brianna over here has a really fun box that we're going to toss at
The
people.
mic.
Yep. And so if you have a question, just go ahead and stand up so that you can go catch the box mic.
We'll pass it.
Yeah, we could do that too.
Okay, so my question is, what advice would you give to someone to kind of shift that internal narrative about maybe saying to yourself, like, work is never going to be enjoyable, work is just work, and that's kind of what you're taught growing up? I mean, I know I was, I don't know, I'm sure other people were as well. So kind of how do you shift your mindset to realizing that there are opportunities that you could actually enjoy?
Lynn?
All right, your mindset is based on your belief system, and your belief system is based on thoughts. So you can shift your thoughts. What is a more positive thought that would be helpful for you? I'm asking you this question. It's possible. Work can be fun. Work can be enjoyable. Work can be joyful. Yes. So positive affirmations like that. You might like my 10-day career cleanse. I'm just saying it's neuropsychology, positive psychology, and yoga wrapped into it. But you want to train your brain because we have these neural connections. The more we think the same thoughts, the deeper the groove, and you can create new neural connections by creating new thoughts.
Another question?
Hi, my name is Alex. I'm from Ukraine, so I'm sorry for my Russian accent. So my question is to recruiters. Have you ever made a mistake as recruiter? And please share that experience.
What do you mean by mistake?
I mean, you didn't hire a right person. You just say to, I don't know, Steve Jobs, go away.
Well, I think the question can be looked at 2 ways, right? Did I ever not hire the right person, or did I sometimes hire the wrong person?
Either way.
The answer has to be, of course. I've hired a lot of people, both for Google and elsewhere in my career, and I would say, though, that I will rarely regret hiring someone into a role that maybe wasn't the best fit, if I believed in that person. Because there have been times, for example, I just hired a sales rep, I hired a consultant into a sales rep role. He'd literally never held a quota before, but when we looked at the actual criteria of the job, right, it said that client management was one of the #1 necessary criteria for this job. Consultants manage clients better than I think. They're incredible at it. They know how to anticipate needs. They know how to admit when they don't know something and circle back. So we hired him to the role. Do I know that he's going to succeed in that role? No, he's never carried a quota, but I won't regret that. But yes, I mean, of course, I've hired the wrong person and let go of the right person sometimes.
Does anybody else? Let's go. Bree, you can decide who gets
You
to
ready?
talk.
I believe in you.
Okay, my question is, me personally, I know what I don't want to do and also where I feel my strengths are, but I find it very hard to focus on what path to go with these strengths. And I guess what you were saying, things that I need to work on, how would you give advice to somebody who's been asked, what do you want to do? And you don't have that answer 100%.
There's a couple different ways. There's different assessment tools. I know we were talking about before. The strong interest inventory is one of the tools that people use that will help give you some options on careers based on what your interests are. And so you may get a list of, say, 10 possible career paths, and based off of your interest, then we can say, okay, you know what you like to do, what your strengths are, where do those fit into these particular roles? And then that's when you can start to research a little bit and some of the connecting with people that are in those industries and start to learn more about those industries and how much of a fit could they be for you. So there's some strategies, to pursue some of those to see, is it the right fit? But I think also connecting with people in different careers the industries that you have an interest in, I think has probably been one of the biggest opportunities to learn, is find somebody that's doing the work you're interested in and ask them about it, learn about it. What is it you love about your work? What frustrates you about your work? What advice would you give someone interested in starting out in that career field? So I think it's just from a research perspective, that's where I would start with some of that to narrow down your choices.
Informational interviews then also help you know people at different companies, which also goes back to the networking piece.
The breakout session I'm doing is called, Design Your Dream Job. We're gonna talk.
Yeah.
But it's basically, can you create your vision statement? I specialize in people when they get asked, what do you wanna do? Deer in the headlights look. That's a really hard question to answer because I think it's the wrong question. The real question is, who are you? What do you care about? What's exciting for you? What are you curious about? So those are the kinds of things that will create your vision statement. And then you give that to people like, oh, is that what you're looking for? In my industry, it's called this. In my company, it's called this. And so then it's easier to make some connections, but you need the words, right?
My answer is short. I talk to people that know me better than I feel like I know myself. I think we can have some blind spots. So if it's like, what intrigues you, what energizes you, you have no idea where to let that lead you. To your earlier point, talk to people that know you.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. And Bree, it's on you to figure out who it goes to.
I gave someone a nod back there that I got to
Okay.
commit to.
Hi. So we kind of already touched a little bit on it where earlier somebody said find somebody to help you with your blind spots. I work in design and I've been in both the situation where I need the advice and I'm giving the advice. And I feel like it comes off very overly positive sometimes. How do you find someone who'll be really honest about your blind spots and be like, no, you really are not good at this, focus on this, or you really need to work better at this or highlight this, etc.
You should totally read Growth Mindset because that's what the whole book is basically about. Basically, there are certain businesses where it's much more common practice for someone to give you very direct and constructive feedback, and other businesses where people like to be a little bit more warm and fuzzy about it and they don't really want to be direct. I think sometimes you just have to ask the direct question, right? Say to someone, I would say a mentor or someone that you trust, like, be really direct with me. I want the honest truth. It will not impact my relationship with you. Give them the confidence to know that, give them the permission. You're not going to be offended. You're not going to be hurt. You might be momentarily, but you'll push past it. And I think you'll get the responses. Yeah. Growth Mindset.
Radical Candor is another really good book, too. Radical Candor, it talks about how to give back feedback.
Yeah, I think when you give that permission for somebody to give the tough love feedback, it's important because they have to feel that permission to do it. Because I think naturally we want to see the best in people. We want to make people feel better, especially if we know they're going through a transition, they're going through a tough time, or they're struggling. We want to be that chief motivational officer to support them with the positive. And I think when you have that conversation, look, I need you to be brutally honest with me about this. You know, is this a good idea? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think this fits me? You know, I want you to tell me. And even if it hurts my feelings, it's okay. Look, just like you said, you've got to give that permission. I think that's the biggest thing. People get frustrated that my closest friends or relatives don't tell me the truth. And it's because you haven't given them permission. So I agree.
I think to Lynn's point earlier as well, you could frame it as, what are the 3 things where you see me really spark and get excited and energized? And where are like the 3 things that you think I can improve? And so that gives them the space to then also give the positive and then be like, actually, here are 3 things that I think you could probably be doing better as well. Awesome. So we're going to have some amazing breakout sessions. Thank you guys for being such an attentive audience. It was amazing. Also, I know there were some people that still had questions, so we'll all be around. You can obviously come up to us at the end as well. But I'm going to let everybody plug what their breakout session is, and then you guys will be able to go and figure out where you want to go.
First, darn it. Okay. So essentially what we're going to do is talk about what makes a good resume and LinkedIn profile. And a lot of people, as I said, are having trouble submitting to these applicant tracking systems. And so what we're going to bring from a resume writer and a recruiter standpoint is what you can do specifically to get past those applicant tracking systems. And not only that, but just to have a good resume that stands out when a recruiter or a hiring decision maker actually looks at it. So that's essentially it.
And
And
where
that
will you
will
be?
be here
Yep.
in this station, and we'll flip these chairs around, so it'll be in this area.
And that's Kelly and Chris. Okay.
And I'll be talking about the unnetworking human connections we're going to do over here in the corner over here to the left by the exit sign.
Awesome.
Design your dream job. There are 500,000 different job titles, y'all. 500,000. So I designed these cards to systematically represent all 500,000. So you can explore the wide range of things that are out there and start sorting through like what's speaking to me and why. And then from that point, creating a vision statement becomes so fun and so easy.
And I hate to say ditto, but Lynn and I are essentially in the same kind of business. We take radically different approaches in doing it. So if you are a little bit more right-brained and creative and sort of more into the metaphysical and into Eastern beliefs, go see hers. I'm an engineer by training, so I tend to use a more left-brained approach, and I'm doing aligning your career over here. And I brought my set of exercises that I use when I work with my clients, and I will share with you the sets of exercises so you can create a job specification.
Amazing.
She creates a vision, I create a specification. Same thing.
Yeah, love it. All right, so there might not be enough chairs, but you guys are obviously in chairs here too. So go over to where you're going to be. Try not to, stampede each other on the way over. And if we need to bring over more chairs, we will.
And we'll take a quick 5-minute break. We ran a little over on the panel, so quick 5-minute break if anyone needs to use the restroom or grab another drink.
Thank you very